Hi class, in this video we're going to be talking about problem solving policing. This is from chapter 5, and this is really probably one of the most important topics that we're going to talk about in this class, and it's going to be a recurring theme that we bring up over and over and over again. Okay, so I really want you guys to get the basics of problem solving policing right now. It's also called problem oriented policing in other textbooks or in other circles, but the basic idea is that we're looking at law enforcement and you're looking at the idea of solving problems. Okay, so we'll get into it. Like I said, we're going to cover this frequently throughout the semester. When we talk about drugs, for example, we're going to be talking about the drug problem. Okay, what's law enforcement's role in the drug problem? Is it just to catch drug dealers and catch drug offenders and put them in jail? Or is there a bigger problem at play and a bigger issue happening that law enforcement can be a part of? And is there a role that law enforcement can have in solving the problem rather than just addressing the problem and dealing with the criminals? Is there something else that we can do as law enforcement to solve the problem? And the same idea with, we'll talk about gangs, like the gang problem. Is there something we can do to prevent gang activity rather than just going after gang members and going after criminals and putting them in jail? Can we solve the gang problem before it starts and address the issue, to address the problem that way? So like I said, we're going to talk about it a lot. One of the main times you're going to be really looking at it is on your midterm assignment. So I'll publish the midterm assignment soon. I know it's still early in the class, but I want you guys to be able to get a head start on it if you want. But in the midterm assignment, you're going to be looking at the problem of prostitution. So you're going to use this cool learning activity that Arizona State University put out. And it basically creates this imaginary city and this imaginary problem that this city has. And you are going to be the expert consultant that's brought in to help the city deal with their prostitution problem. Okay, so you're going to be introduced to the problem. Hey, this is what's going on. We have prostitution here. It's leading to other crimes. This is what we've done in the past, but it's not working. You're the expert. Help. How do we solve this prostitution problem that we have in the city? And you're going to have to look at all the information, and you're going to use a problem-solving approach to figure out how you can make changes to what law enforcement's doing and what the city is doing to help deal with the issue. So the midterm assignment is actually going to be a lot of fun. It's very interactive, and you're going to learn a lot doing it. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of the class is that midterm assignment that you guys get to do, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, that whole assignment is really all about problem solving policing. So without further ado, let's get into it. All this is from your textbook, but I want to cover it in this lecture as well, just because, again, I think it's that important. So here's some key elements. First one, of course, is that you're focusing on a problem, right? So the problem, rather than a crime, a case, a call, or some kind of incident, is the basic unit of police work, right? So we're not just looking at crimes, we're looking at overall problems, right? Sometimes law enforcement can get involved, even if a crime hasn't taken place. There's still a problem that needs to be addressed and something that needs to be dealt with. So you're really looking at the problem, and you're looking at the root cause of the problem, right? Not just maybe the symptoms of the problems, but the root cause of the problems, and that's how you address it. And of course, the problem is something that concerns or causes harm to the community, right? To the citizens. It's not just the police. So it's not just the police have an issue with something, and that's why it's a problem. But no, it's important to the community, and the community recognize it as an issue and as a problem. So, excuse me. So that is the problem, all right? And then addressing the problems, of course, it means more than just a quick fix, right? And that's the reality is they're not simple problems, okay? Like the examples I already gave you, like the gang problem, the drug problem. There's no quick solution to these problems, right? It's not like, oh, that's easy. Let's just do X, Y, and Z, and that'll solve, the gang crimes that we have, or that'll solve the whole drug issue that has been plaguing our country. there's no easy solution, right? So there's no quick fix. It's really taking a big picture look and not just addressing, what's right in front of your eyes, but seeing, okay, what's causing this? How do we address and how do we fix this problem at a larger scale so that it creates lasting change, right? Sometimes just putting gang members in jail, that doesn't really deal with the problem, right? Because other criminals will just fill in the role, right? You put one criminal in jail, guess what? Another criminal will come behind them and do the same thing. So it's maybe not fixing the problem that is existent. So that's again one of the key elements of problem solving policing, is it looking at that solution that's a big picture solution. It's not just a quick fix. Police officers must routinely and systematically analyze problems before trying to solve them, right? I can't just show up to a situation and be the expert right off the bat, right? I don't have all the answers. And usually, like I said in the previous note, problems are complex, right? It's not a simple answer. So in order to come up with a solution to a problem, you have to really understand the problem. And that's where the analysis comes in, right? Analysis is hugely important, and it's a huge step in the whole problem solving process. Is you have to figure out, okay, what's really going on? And that's going to take time. It's going to take analysis, and it's going to take really thorough contemplation of all the factors involved. So analysis is a key part of the problem solving policing method. It's analyze what's going on, figure out all the data, get everything squared away so you really understand what the problem is. And then, of course, once you analyze it and figure out what's going on, you have to be able to describe it precisely and accurately and break it down into specific aspects, right? Again, it's not just some generic general idea. It's like, no, these are specifically the issues. Maybe the issues are poverty. Maybe it's issues of corruption. Maybe there's issues of just mismanagement, not enough staff, all kinds of social issues. Who knows, right? It could be lots and lots of different types of issues, but you have to be able to break it down and precisely describe that in your analysis, okay? And then you have to understand who's all involved, right? It's not just the police and the criminals. There's a community involved, okay? There's parents involved, there's businesses involved, right? Lots of different stakeholders and individuals that are affected by the problem, and honestly, some that might not be affected by the problem. And so that can create a hindrance, right? To actually finding a solution. Is some people are okay with things the way they are. Hey, don't rock the boat. We like the status quo. And so you're not going to be able to develop a proper solution to the problem if some people are opposed to the problem even being addressed in the first place, right? So you're looking at that idea. You also have to really analyze, and this part of your analysis is understanding how is the problem being handled right now? What's currently been done? What's been done in the past, right? And has that been effective or has it not been effective? And if it hasn't been effective, hey, let's acknowledge that in order to come up with a better response. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again if it's not working, right? If we just keep putting the same person in jail over and over and over again, and they get out, and then they just get put back in jail, and then they get out, and they just get put back in jail, is that really solving the problem? Probably not, right? So we want to admit and acknowledge, hey, some things aren't working, we could do something better, right? And this is an important part, right? Initially, any and all possible responses to a problem should be considered, right? You don't want to rule out things, okay? Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Sometimes you have to kind of think of radical ideas in order to affect change, okay? And so that's part of the problem solving process is, hey, let's look at every possibility. Maybe this idea is crazy and it's not going to work, but at least we got to suggest it and consider all the angles, right? Key elements 5, okay? Here's the crux of the issue, right? Police must proactively try to solve problems rather than just react to the harmful consequences of problems, right? So that's really identifying, okay, is this the actual problem we're dealing with, or is this the consequence of a different problem, right? So a lot of times we're just dealing with consequences. There's a major problem here, and so we have criminal activity, and so we're arresting people and putting people in jail. But that's the criminal activity is really a consequence of a deeper problem. Maybe that deeper problem is some kind of economic disadvantage, poverty, discrimination, just lack of education, lack of opportunity, all kinds of different things, right? That could be the source or the root of the problem. So law enforcement needs to consider that, okay, how can we solve the problems rather than just react, right? And so this comes at a whole systemic level, right? So it's not just the individual officers that are part of this. This idea, this methodology really has to be undertook by the whole department, right? So the whole police department needs to, increase officers' freedom to participate in this problem-solving process. And that means officers need to have freedom and the ability to make important decisions, to use their own discretion, right? But of course, officers need to be responsible and held responsible and accountable for their decision making. But officers have to have discretion. They have to be able to look at a situation and be like, okay, I could take this person to jail right now, but that might not be the best solution to the problem. The problem is this person needs some mental health help, right? I need to take this person to a mental health professional or refer this person to some mental health counseling because they're not all there. So yeah, I could put them in jail, but that's not going to solve the problem. They need to get some serious mental health issues, right? Or they might need some kind of rehabilitation, some drug rehabilitation. Putting them in jail isn't going to solve the problem. Maybe I need to refer them to some drug rehabilitation programs or things like that. So there has to be some discretion and some ability to make those kind of decisions, and in order to solve problems, right? So that's part of the process. And then here's another key point of problem-solving policing is you have to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of any new responses you try, okay? Try something new, and then just like you analyzed initially the problem, now you need to kind of analyze and evaluate that new solution that you tried or that new process you tried. Did it work or did it make things worse, right? Was it a little bit better? And then you're constantly evaluating and deciding, okay, what works, what doesn't work, right? And so it's the whole problem-solving process. The methodology is fluid, and it continues on like that. So those are kind of the key elements of problem-solving policing that I want to look at. The next slide, this is about the SARA model, or S-A-R-A, model of problem-solving. This is the most popular one. This is the one you're going to be using in your midterm. And this is kind of the essential nuts and bolts of problem-solving policing, right? So SARA, SARA stands for scanning, analyzing, responding, and then assessing. So, right? So the first part, scanning, you're just collecting information, identifying what's going on, okay? Figuring out what the problem is, basically. And then in analyzing, you're taking that information that you've gathered and then analyzing it, doing the research, figuring out all the information you can about the problem, about the circumstances surrounding the problem, about what's been done before to address the problem, what hasn't been done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, all those things, right? And then after you do a really thorough job of analysis, you're gonna respond, okay? Let's address this problem and try to fix it. And so you're gonna select and implement some solutions that you've come up with, and hopefully they work, right? But that's why the last part is important, the assessing, because then you're going to evaluate the success of your response, okay? And so those are the four main parts of the SARA model of problem solving. Those are the four main components of problem solving policing. Right, this is the Arizona State University Center for Problem-Oriented Policing website. Like I mentioned before, your midterm is going to be taken from this website. It's actually going to be up here in the Learning Center. You're going to go to the Street Prostitution Learning module. We're not there yet. I wanted to show you this page because this gives you more information about the SARA model. So that's what we're talking about. It's a commonly used problem-solving method within problem-oriented policing or problem-solving policing, right? So this will give you, right, a lot more description of, okay, what is scanning, right? That's that first step. What are you identifying? What's the information you're gathering? Second is analysis. Okay, what does analysis mean? How are you analyzing? How can law enforcement analyze the problem? The response, right? This is what the response step looks like. And then finally, the assessment or the evaluation step. How are you evaluating and assessing how effective the problem is? So really good website. Again, this is on Arizona State University. You can Google it. Just Center for Problem-Oriented Policing, and you'll find the page and find more information. But again, like I said, you're going to get there also on your midterm when you're doing that project. Okay, so that kind of covers problem solving, and then only couple other things in chapter 5 is after we look at problem solving policing, your textbook does talk about data-driven strategies to policing and like CompStat, computer statistics. I talked about that a little bit already in the previous video, but you can read more about that in your textbook. Also intelligence-led policing, it's similar, but that really has to do with sharing intelligence between different law enforcement agencies, right? So like the FBI is gathering intelligence all the time. The CIA is gathering intelligence all the time. Our local police departments and our local county sheriffs are gathering information all the time. Okay, how do we share that intelligence and use that intelligence to make all of our departments more effective in policing and in keeping our communities safe and things like that. So that intelligence-led policing focuses on that. And then the last one that your book talks about is predictive policing, right? So again, this has to do with a lot with like data collection and data analysis. But then it's okay, based on the analysis, based on the data, put all that into some fancy computer program. Can we figure out, okay, well, what areas of the city are going to be areas where we need to address because there's criminal activity or there's a likelihood of criminal activity. So it's almost like a guessing game of, okay, can we guess where criminal activity is going to happen before it happens, and can we then respond and adjust our policies, our processes accordingly to ultimately prevent crime and lessen crime and catch criminals and things like that. So that's kind of the predictive policing. So again, most important is the problem solving policing method. That's really kind of be the focus of our class, and really the focus in law enforcement right now is looking at that idea. But these other ones I want you to be aware of as well, and you can read more about those in your textbook.